Okay, great. All right, well, thanks for the introduction there, Con, and thanks for attending, everyone. Welcome. My name is Steve Moon. I've been working with Essential Software for the last 17 years. I have a lot of experience. Before that, I used to be a customer of ESS's, and I used Infor Sightline. The solution that we're going to be presenting, I have about 17 years of experience with. So that's Infor's CPQ, which stands for Configure, Price, Quote. And so first of all, what we'll be doing here is I'm just going to go through the agenda that we've got. We've broken this session up into 4 distinct categories. So first, we're going to be talking a little bit about different manufacturing strategies and kind of get a feel for where configured products fit in with these manufacturing strategies. Then we'll be moving on and speaking specifically about configure to order type products. Right, so we're going to talk about what a product configurator does, and we're going to look at the Infor CPQ flow and try to relate that to how it happens in your organization. And then we're going to come up with some alternatives to CPQ. So for example, if you have configured products today, how would you do that? How would you manage that in the system that you own? Right, so there's a couple of different options there. And then finally, on the third part of this, we're going to go into the full Infor CPQ experience. And by that, we're going to look at the different integration points, like where do you launch it from? How does it work? And then we'll look at some configurable items, and I'll be giving you some examples along the way as we go, running these configuration sessions. And then finally, what we'll be doing at the very end is we'll talk a little bit about planning for CPQ, like how do you create, a CPQ model? How do you think about things? And how do you work with us to give the best results possible out of your CPQ investment? I guess we're going to be holding off questions. Is that the plan? Or if you have any questions, you can just put them through in the chat. Maybe that's the best. Then Con can break in and notify me if there's anything.
Yep. We will take the questions at the end. But during the webinar, if you have any questions, you can please feel free to write the Q&A section. So, yeah.
I'm always happy to answer questions on the fly here. Okay, so first part of this, we're going to go into manufacturing strategies. So these are ones that don't necessarily are not configured to order, but we'll look at some of the other ones and we'll identify some of the tools in the CSI toolbox that we have that can help you with them. Okay, so first off, we've got make to stock. So make to stock is a common sort of scenario, and that's typically where you're looking for a really fast turnaround. Okay, so you're doing you've got your shelves, they're stocked full of items that you pre-built, pre-bought. They're sitting there waiting for your customers to order. Okay, we call that push manufacturing. And in push manufacturing, your production is not limited to the current demands. Okay, so in your facility here, what you have is you're creating stock levels. You're deciding how much you want to have of the product on hand at any given time. Okay, and when your consumers or your customers are ordering, placing those demands, then you push the demands or you push the supply out to the customers. Okay, so very, very simple kind of strategy there. And we have a number of tools in our CSI toolbox that can help you with that. Okay, and in order of complexity, I'm going to go through all of these tools here. In order of complexity, we're looking at JIT and Kanban transactions first. So that's really simple, where you're just looking at things, you're looking on your shelves, and you're saying, okay, the shelves are empty or it looks a little depleted, so let's go and create some more. So you're not linking anything, you're just doing a visual replenishment type system. Okay. Next in line in complexity, we've got a reorder point. So that's also very simple, where the system is monitoring your stock levels for you, and you're saying when it hits a certain level, we're going to reorder and we're going to bring it up. Okay, so you keep depleting your stock as customers go, and then you reorder. And you could set quantities like how many do we want to make, and what size of lots are we going to produce. So all of that is tied in with the reorder points. Okay, but it's not taking into consideration any lead times or any current demands. When we start getting into safety stock, that's when it's looking at the different demands of the system. So if you have like several orders for the same product, right, it's taking that into consideration and saying, okay, your level's going to drop below at this point in the future. So we need to make more now based on the current lead times of your products in order to create that safety level, that buffer that you want. Okay, so that's safety stock. And then there's forecasting. Forecasting is similar but different. But here we're setting a date to our demands, and the system considers a forecast to be a demand just like a customer order. The difference is that demand is going to be set in the future, well, like the customer order can be, but that demand is going to be in the future sometime. So we could set up, say, a forecast for 50 units of a particular product that you want to have on your shelf available for October 1st, right? And then say it's 50 units and a customer order comes in and there's a demand for one of those 50 units. Now, if that demand is dated within the current month, so it's in September, then it's still going to say, okay, but you need 50 units in October, and there's going to be a demand to meet those. Okay. But if that customer order comes in and it's due in October, then it's covered by that sort of forecast. And it says, okay, we're not going to make another 50 units there because one of these is actually allocated to that order. Okay, so you have all of that today, all of these different capabilities. There's also an advanced forecasting. And what that looks like is it moves along with the actual forecast. Okay, it gives you a screen like this. And the whole idea is that we're analyzing the demand. So over here, we're looking at the last year's history. And we're seeing what the demand was, okay? And we're creating a forecast based on different algorithms that match it. This is the MRP forecast, and then I could have a current forecast if I adjust this manually. So what it gives you is a tool for being able to predict the future, if you will. So that's the advanced forecasting module. And when you're done, you would click the button to update the MRP, and that pushes it into your standard forecast. Okay, so that's some of the tools that we have to handle a make-to-stock type environment. Now, if we're in a make-to-order situation, we're flipping the script around. And now we're doing what we call pull manufacturing. So the customer is placing an order that creates a demand on your facility to produce more items. Okay, so that's a simple make-to-order type scenario. The tool that we usually do to handle this is an example of a customer order line for a product that's a forklift. Okay, and this is sourced directly to a job. So when you click the source button, it creates a job order specifically to meet that demand. So you're just pegging one order specifically for that customer order. So we call that direct sourcing. You can also run this from our material planner workbench. So you could set your material planner workbench to run in a direct sourcing type mode, not using planned data. And then you can cross-reference a whole bunch of demands, maybe for job materials, for sub-assemblies, or for specific order lines, right? Anywhere there's a demand in the system, you could cross-reference your orders to it. And so you can do that in bulk for a specific date range or order range, whatever you need to do. So that's like a make to order type scenario. And configuration does fall into the make or assemble to order situation there. And next up, we're going to look at a model. So this is like a hybrid manufacturing model. And by this, this is basically a consolidated simple bill of materials for a product that would often be an example of a hybrid manufacturing type environment. So if you're building sofas, for example, you're a furniture manufacturer, you're building sofas, then often you're going to use pull manufacturing to make this finished sofa, right? And the reason why is because you would need to create a frame. Now, you don't want to have like a warehouse. If you remember that first slide that we looked at, you don't want to have a warehouse that's just completely full of manufactured frames. They're bulky, they take up a lot of room. So what you'd want to do in that case is you would want to make manufactured frames to order. Okay. Now, at the same time, you've got a foam cushion kit, and that can be composed of pre-cut fabric and pre-cut foam pieces. And maybe these can sit on your shelf for a little bit. right? So you could actually use a planning bill of material. That's another tool in the toolbox to say that you think there's going to be a demand for a specific number of red cushion kits versus blue cushion kits. And you can have those sitting in there in stock. Right. So this is an example of a sub-assembly you would have. These are both sub-assemblies, but this one would typically be, a forecast type thing. So you might set up what we call a master production schedule to produce these foam cushion kits on the cadence that you need. Right. So that's the cushion kits. So what we have here is we have examples of push manufacturing, where we're sort of like setting the stock levels for your cushion kits. And your manufactured frames are going to be on a build to order, and then your full manufacturing is going to be there too. Okay, so just a quick note, if you are a make to order or assemble to order and you have definable options, then you're basically looking at configured item, right? So defined options is how you know that you have configured products that you would need to handle the system somehow. And I'll show you a few ways that you can do this. Before we get into configuration though, what I'd like to do is spend just a minute talking about another type of order. And this is engineered to order. Okay, so we look for specific keywords or phrases that you might say, like we're completely custom. So if you're completely custom, you build it differently every time. Then we need to look at an engineer to order type scenario. So that's different than a configure to order. So just want to make the distinction there. Another thing that people say is, well, when I ask for a bill of materials, we'll be asked, like, what does your bill of materials look like? And the customer answers, well, usually our customers supply the drawings or we make the drawings differently each time. That's how we're, the sort of key words that we use to say, well, this is probably an engineer to order scenario. Now, you don't really want to create configuration models and rules to go along with this because you're doing it differently each time. Okay, in scenarios where we do engineer to order, then you're looking at different capabilities here. We often would talk about CAD integration. In CSI, we have projects. So CAD integration is typically used. So especially when we start hearing about talking about drawings in place of bill of materials, then that's when we know that we have an opportunity to position something called CAD link with you. So this is a CAD integration. So it's a two-way integration between your CAD system and Infor Sightline or CSI. And what happens there is when your engineers design to drawing to spec, they're creating the drawings, then you can create new items. And that'll push over into CSI. You can create new items inside the ERP system, and it'll attach them at the appropriate levels, whether that's at the main level or at a little bit further down in a sub-assembly. It'll create those items and attach them. Okay. The other thing it can do is, instead of doing it directly to a bill of materials, it can create a Sightline ECN, engineering change notice. And you can go through and you can review all the steps and it'll push all that information into Sightline, along with any drawings. So you can attach the drawing itself as like your DWG file if you're using AutoCAD, or your SolidWorks file. You can attach those drawings themselves or a PDF copy of those through Infor Document Management. So it'll integrate that way, push the drawings in there. So with your item, it's attaching that drawing. And it works on all different types of Sightline BOMs. So that could be your estimate BOM, for your estimating purposes, your engineer to order company, or it could be a standard item, which is your current BOM, or it could be a BOM that's in mid-flight in production. So it could be like a job bill of materials. That's one of the options there. Now what we'll do is we'll move on and we'll speak specifically about a configure to order type situation. Okay, so we'll talk about product configurators. What is a configured product? What are some examples? And we'll look at how you can handle those inside of CSI. And I'll probably dive into the software a little bit and show you how you could do this inside of Infor CSI. So here is probably the most typical example. I'm sure that everyone's used a configurator before. Pretty much every car manufacturer has them. So if you're looking to buy a car or a boat or any kind of RV, then that's a typical example of using Configurator. So if I'm going in, I really want to buy this car, I go onto the company's website, I pick what color I want, it shows me what color the car or how the car looks in that color that I've asked for. And then I have a bunch of option packages that I can pick. I can pick like seats. Do I want the leather seats, and do I want them to be heated or even now cooled? Sunroofs, tech packages like different stereo options, all of your safety options like driver detection stuff, or sorry, road detection type stuff to tell whether you're leaving the road, that type of thing. And then even dealer options. So if you want your dealer to install a roof rack or a trailer hitch, those are all examples of configured products. Some other common industries that we see, like I mentioned, the boats and RVs and that sort of thing, but also heavy equipment. Like, so if you've got a number of people that make truck bodies, so they're designing truck bodies in different industries to fit onto trucks. So truck body design and forklifts. I actually have a model that we can go through a little bit later, which is a forklift. So, what's the lift capacity of the forklift? Like, how do you want it powered? Those type of things. People that have gone in and wanted to redo their kitchen, a lot of times you look at cabinets, kitchen cabinets. Almost all of those websites will use a type of configurator where you can see what each type of design looks like in different finishes and different cabinet configurations. And furniture, other types of furniture like dressers. This dresser comes in 3 types of wood and has multiple door configurations. We see it often in construction as well. Interior design, so you can do like your doors and windows. That's a really common one. So if you've got a door, what size is the door? That's an example of a dimensional configurator, right? So you've got dimensional configurators, and then like maybe the species of the door. Like, so what type of wood are we using to design the door? And clothing and apparel. So usually when you're going in, you've got a shirt that you want. The shirts are standard, but this has stripes, or do I want a solid color? So those are all examples of things that can be configured. And there's also, lighting and electrical. That's another one. So light designs is another example of configured products. Okay. The key is we're looking at a single SKU that can have multiple options. Okay. That's the key. So if you have different options that are available, you would pick those options, or the customer would pick them when they're ordering. And at the end of this, usually when you're configuring a car, it's going to tell you what the price is, the manufacturer's suggested retail price. Okay, now we'll talk specifically about Infor CPQ. Okay. So we have sort of a 3-step design process. So the first part is what we call rule set design. Okay, so a rule set is a series of questions that are asked to the consumer or to your internal staff, like what type of what are the different options. Okay, and that rule set design is designed in something called the design. Oh, sorry. I've got it open here. It's it's basically the designer. And then the rule sets that you create, you attach them to an item that's in Sightline, Design Studio. And then what you do is you run those rules inside a configuration session. So the system knows, based on the way that you've configured an item, that this is configurable, right? That this item is now configurable. And then it looks to the rule set designs to see what the rules are that it follows when you place an order for it. Okay, and then it steps you through. So it'll light up a button that you can step through, or in the case of a web portal, it'll put a little icon in there that says that it's configurable. That'll allow you to step through and design your own product. Then the configuration session closes and data is returned back to your ERP system. So the data that it returns back would be like price and manufacturing instructions, all the things that you need to build the actual item itself. So this is how the configuration session looks. So this is just a note of the box type look and feel for the design elements. And you can see what it's doing is it's taking you through a guided and intelligent sales process. So part of it, you design the rules, or we help you design the rules so that it's foolproof. So people can't pick the wrong options. Certain sizes go with other size sub-assemblies, right? So if you're doing if you're building a specific assembly, for example, if I pick a pad mount transformer, this is an example of a transformer, then maybe I have specific types of guards that I can use with it. And maybe it'll only take specific types of packaging, right? Those are some of the different options. So it's very rules-based, and they can't create like invalid combinations. And you can also do guided selling. So, to upsell certain things while you're walking through a configuration process, then you look at things and they're picking the selections, but then it says, okay, well, if you do this, then often you want to add this in. So that you kind of like do that sort of sales logic, add that to your process. Okay. You don't need to be able to program to design these models either. And I'll show you these in a few minutes here. And it can design complex bills of materials and routing. Okay, and it does this dynamically while it's creating the pricing. Okay, so you're able to, at the end of the session, push a complete bill of materials back into SitePlan. Okay, it's not a bolt-on. It's actually like out of the box, able to integrate with SitePlan. So you can see in creating this transformer, it's asking us to pick mounting options. Then it's asking us to pick a specific guard, which may be optional. So some of the options can be optional, or it could be required. And then it's asking us to pick the fluid or oil and different packaging options. And then there's another tab that opens up for spare parts. So that's what's designed specifically in this rule set. We're asking mounting option, guards, and other options. The way it looks in the back end, okay, this is the Infor Design Studio that we use for creating these rule sets. So basically what it's doing here is it's stepping you through. So it's looking at mounting, and there's the pad price, and we're displaying the price. And then here's it's asking for guards, and there's some sort of validation that's there. So specific guards are maybe used with specific items, right? So it's making sure that you pick the correct options. And it's going down to fluids and skids, and that's asking for a nameplate. And the way you design this is you take your rules on your left side and you drag and drop them over onto the right side, and you fill in the options that apply to the rule. So when you're looking at screen options, what we call screen options, you use a screen rule, and that's the way that you design the questions that are asked to the customer. Okay. I think I saw a question pop up there in the chat. Let's see. So Race's asking, does CPQ get the SKU data from CSI, or is this defined at the CPQ level? So Infor CPQ is bi-directional, so you can obtain like different information. So for example, if you wanted to price out different packages, you can do a call from these rules into CSI and say, what are the pricing rules that go with this? How much is this product going to be? And then it'll pull that price and add it to the cumulative price that you have in your rules. So it can go that way, or you can push information in. So you could say, while I'm writing the bill of materials, or when I return back, some of this information, I want you to place these items into this bill of materials. These materials, say you have a package for a car, like it's say it's upgraded, like an electronics kit, right? So it's an updated tech package. So it's got these different, now all of a sudden you've got sensors that are required, and you get heated seats thrown in, but something like that. Then there's like 6 or 7 different sub-assemblies, and you can put those into the bill of materials from there. So I can design my rule sets when I go down to these manufacturing rules and put in different materials that are based on one selection. I can put in 30 different materials or sub-assemblies. You can also make those sub-assemblies configurable in here, right? So as you're designing your rule set, if there's, for example, a wheel. So in our car design, we've got a wheel. Obviously, you need wheels. You've selected certain hubs. that's great, but maybe there's a number of spokes that go with it. So you know, like there's going to be different materials that are there. You can configure all the components in there. Maybe you put the calipers in at the same time. So thanks for the question, Reza. Okay, so that's the CPQ session, and we touched on this, but this is the data that gets returned. Okay, so basically when you finish your CPQ session, it's going to return a price based on the options that you select. And this is all optional. You don't have to do this. You don't have to return a price. You don't have to return any of this, but optionally you can choose to do that. And this is the typical data that gets returned. The other thing that can get returned, and this is huge, is an intelligent part number and description. So for example, if you're doing something that's size specific, like you're designing a kitchen cabinet and it's going to be, you know, 18 inches by 20 inches or something like that, you could have 18 by 20 returned to your customer order line. Okay, so for example, when you set up a configurable kitchen cabinet, it's got, you know, part number of cabinet, and it's got a description that says configurable kitchen cabinet. But when you return it, that description for that order line says kitchen cabinet 18 by 20. So that's an intelligent description. You can also change the part number. So you started out with configurable kitchen cabinet. Based on the options that you select, it returns back a different part number to that line. Okay, so that's a key, and we'll get into that a little bit when we talk about rules design there. The other thing you can do is you can create new part numbers. So if you have intelligent part numbering system where you have, you know, say you have red at the end, or R for red, B for black, you know, like you have different like color codes like that. You have size codes in there, and you want to create a new part number based on those items. It will actually create a new part number for you and add that current bill of materials to it. So instead of going in, and if you do want a separate SKU for all of your items, instead of going in and creating all those items, you can go in, create the configuration for each item, and it will go in and say, this is now this item. And now it lives in your item master for you to go and select again if you need to build that same item again. It returns a cross-reference job, just like in our forklift example before. Now you've got a job with a custom bill of materials specifically to make that product. So going back to that make to order, make to stock type thing, and a configurable product, you went through that session, and now you've got a configurable job. This has the specific options, the bill of materials, the routing steps that is required to make that specific instance of your configurable product. And then down here, a key feature that we have is the ability to add all sorts of notes. You can return notes to your order, you know, maybe packaging instructions. You can return them directly to the order line. So maybe that's, you know, all your configuration details listed out in the invoice, whatever you've selected that you feel is important. It's all configurable. So whatever you selected as important highlights, you know, this car with this tech package, that type of thing, that's all sitting there underneath the order line. That'll print out on all the reports. Same with the job. So now you're taking all the manufacturing instructions and maybe you're adding them into the routing steps. So in your job operation, it's like you're going to take this piece, you're going to weld it this way. Here's where the welds go according to what the user had selected. Okay. Same with material notes. So that's all available for you. Okay. So what if you produce configurable products, but you don't have Infor CPQ? So I'm going to go into Infor CSI here, and we'll just sort of talk about what it does. What I'd like to do is show you how you can configure products in Sightline without any additional licenses required for Infor CPQ, but it'll give you an idea of what you can do with Infor CPQ too. So we'll start with direct sourcing, like we kind of spoke about earlier. So go into Sightline. So right now I'm logged into CSI, and I'm running everything from a home page that we've got here. We've gone through the manufacturing strategies, and now we're talking about configured orders. So we're going to look at a custom job here with no configurator. And earlier we used the example of a sofa. So this is a customer order that I've got sitting here. And on it, we've got an order line that is specifically to build a sofa. Now behind the sofa, there's a bill of materials, right? A current bill of materials. Okay, but we're going to change some of the options around. So if you see this, this is the customer orders quick entry screen. I've got 2 items on this quick entry screen. Okay, and if I look, there is a sofa. Scrolling off to the right, you can see that I've created a job for it. Okay. Now within that job, if I press the source button, we'll be looking at the job order itself. And we're going to do a configuration change, okay, to update the item. Okay, so maybe the base unit is beige. I can't remember what the base unit is, but we're going to go into the bill of materials here by looking at the engineering workbench. And we're going to make some changes. So very simply, we're looking at the operations on the top and then the materials at the bottom. So we've got a blue as a base unit. And if I want, I can set this up. I've got just drop down here. So I could go in and I could, instead of selecting blue, I can select beige. Notice we have a cost of $76 for the blue. I select beige and that is now $96. Okay. And we can save this. Now we've got a specific, so we've attached the bill of materials to the sofa. And now we're creating a specific bill of materials for creating this one unit that's attached to an order line item. Okay, so now we've got blue. So you can imagine that you can go through, make a number of changes. So that's really good for very simple configured products, right? Where you're changing a few options, but you have to know which options to change and how that would affect things. I can even go through and say that, okay, well, if we were changing, say the arm style here, going from a pleated arm to a different one, that's going to add some time to the assembly. So instead of being 3 hours to assemble, now it's going to be 3.25 hours. Okay, so you can make all these changes to the bill of materials. And the thing is, with Infor CPQ, those rules are all definable. They'll take defaults, based on your work center. They'll take defaults based on how you've set the system up. So when you create the job, it'll do that. But you can override those defaults easily inside the configuration model. So I could say if you chose a pleated arm, use 3.25 labor hours, okay, and it'll create the job for me like that. Okay, and if the customer selects beige material, then update it with beige material. The other thing it can do is something that's a little bit more advanced, maybe, is selecting a package. So if I say I want this sofa, but I want it with I don't know, some specific design option like pinstripes, right? Then update all of the places like the cushion kits and the fabric material that goes on the back and the box bed cushion, update all that with pinstripe material. And maybe that's a sub-assembly in there. So it gets kind of complicated to do configuration manually, but it's easy with Infor CPQ. Okay, so that's an example of configuration there. Okay. The other thing I wanted to do is touch on features and options. I'm not sure if people have investigated features and options, but this is a standard Sightline configurator that's included with Sightline. So the difference is right now we're looking at configured order lines, and we've defined this item as being features and options item. This is the BK 27000. If you have access to your bicycle demo database, this is a product and you can go and play around with this as well. Okay, so it'll be sitting here and all the configuration rules will be written for it. So this is the old school customer order lines, and we've got our quantity and the unit price. It's got the different tabs over here, but because it's a configurable item that we've set up as being features and options configurable, there's a features tab that lights up. Okay. And what we have here is we have a configuration string at the top. This is based on all the options that we've selected. And underneath we have different materials. We have, first of all, the features that they've defined, which means basically the configurable parts of the product. And then for each feature, for example, this is paint, we have options. Okay, so these are the materials that we select, and we can select one material for each feature. Okay, so it's got a quantity of 2. So basically we're putting in 2 pints of paint, right? And it increments the price by $3 when we select this. Same with flags. So we go through flags. So basically what this is allowing us to do is go through in a very simple configurator and create a bill of materials and return a price based on the options that we select. No option for a rack in what we selected here. Seats are defaulted. There's only one, and you can create some simple rules as well. And you notice that as we're going through, it creates this configuration string. How many speeds do we want our bike? Is it going to be a 10 speed or a 12 speed? Right? And what's the incremental price that we're adding? At the end of that, we save it. And when we go to source this to a specific job order, we click the source button here, just like we do for direct cross-referencing. It creates the job specifically with the options that we've asked for. Some of those have sub-assemblies. So I think the wheels, for example, in these feature options, we can create the sub-jobs as well. Okay. And now you've got a specialized bike that was built specifically for this order line. So kind of what I was showing before, where I built it like a configuration from scratch or based on a current bill of materials. Now we've got that job that's available. Okay, and it's built it with this configuration string, and then it would have returned the correct pricing, now $614, based on the options that we selected and all those add-ons. So 2 ways that you can do it. By the way, the first way that I showed you where we created a bill of materials from scratch, that is actually how you would handle an engineer to order if you don't have the CAD integration. Okay, so that's what you can do if you don't have Infor CPQ. Oops. Just, back to here. Now let's talk about the Infor CPQ experience. Okay. So this solution has been around for a long time. It's been around with Sightline back in the early days, and the product's just gotten stronger and stronger each time. They put a lot of development effort into it, so it's a really good, strong product. So let's go in and we'll talk about the integration points with Infor Sightline. Okay. So basically, you have the CPQ session. You understand what that is now, but you can launch the CPQ session for a configurable item from the estimate lines or an estimate job or customer order lines, or you can configure the individual job, or you can launch it from an external portal. And we've got a couple options for that. We can use enterprise quoting, which is a part of the CPQ package, or you can use the Sightline portals, which also create, or which is also available for Sightline users. Okay, so a number of different integration points that we have. Okay. And then I'll show you what the CPQ experience looks like now. So let's just go in. I'm just going to quickly show you the setup on an item, and then we'll look at it. So we'll pick. So I think for the first one, we'll probably go in and we'll look just at a bike, just your standard bike. This also comes with your demo database, like the training databases that you would use. And over here on the, first of all, because the options that you select is going to result in a different cost, you want the cost method to be specific costed. Okay, that allows you to carry a different cost for each lot. So basically, if you configure a bike with all the options, then hey, that's going to be a higher cost to you than a bike with very minimal options. So you want it to be specific costed. And then these all apply to the configuration. So we want it to be order and job configurable. And when we finish the configuration session, do we want to create a job? You can say, nope, never want to do it, or we always want to do it, or we want to ask the user. Same with item creation. So we touched on item creation. We can create a specific configurable item with each configuration session. Okay. There's also features and options down here. And these are portal options that apply to the Sightline portals. So we say it's active for the customer portal, and then we're going to activate portal pricing. And that pricing is going to come from a specific site. So those are some of the options that you have. Just while I'm here, quickly show you on the overview tab for some of these. There would be an overview description, different images. This is all to do with portals. Okay, so when you go into your dealer portal, you have a dealer logging in, creating orders on behalf of their customers. All the information you see here would be displayed. Okay, so that's some of the setup. Now let's look at an actual configuration session. So I've got a customer order set up here with a bunch of configurable items. Okay, and let's go into this bike. We'll have a quick look at this. I'm going to click the configure button. Notice there's no unit price that's assigned to it yet. So I click the configure button, and what it does is it walks me through step by step a configuration session. And there's options up here. So the first option we've chosen, or that we're presented with, is what type of frame do you want? We pick a type of frame, and it starts to draw our bike. Pick a standard frame, and these are the wheels that are available with it. If you pick a mountain frame, these are the wheels that are available with it. And same thing with the racing. Okay, so it's guiding us through intelligent selection process. Paint color. This one has a little tooltip that says red and silver are metallic, but then we select it. These are all design options, so you decide whether you want to display it as being images or drop-down images or checkboxes. There's a whole bunch of different components that you can select. We go into the sites, the seats and handlebars, so we can pick a specific seat. And notice that some of these are defaulted, so you can set the defaults to guide people and have them have less options that they need to select. Okay. This one has an info bump, so I click that. It changes this to summary, and it gives me a little marketing brochure of what type of bike accessories are available. The other thing we have is a detailed look as it goes through and builds our price, and see how it's building the price based on the options that we've selected. Right? Select that we want frames, the price goes up a little bit. We select that we want an air pump that would fit into this area of the bike, and if we select a water bottle, it tells us that you can't do that because they're sitting in the same spot. So that's like a dealer option that you could do for a car. Continue. Oh, still forgot to fix my error, so it's not letting me continue until I fix the error. The other thing is we've got like some simple sort of options here. This is a white paint. If you go red paint, this is just doing a quick, simple image swap. So we'll get into a more detailed one. It's a yellow bike, so I want a yellow bike here. We'll go ahead and finish this. So it's going to return the price that I have. It's going to ask me if I want to create a job because I've selected prompt, and I click yes. Now it's going to go in, it's creating in the background a bill of materials specifically for this job based on the options that I've selected. So now you see if I go to the bike, it doesn't say configurable bike anymore. It's got an intelligent part number, intelligent description here. And if I look at the system notes, it's showing me the options that I selected that I thought was important to this configuration. Quickly going through and looking at the bill of materials for this, here's my job order. And if I look at my engineering workbench for it, you'll see that I've got yellow paint. I've got specific things. So in the painting area, I'm putting in yellow paint. And it's got formulas here that we use to derive all these different calculations. Again, the labor hours, everything that you can do in a bill of materials is set up in the configurator, right? So you can use the defaults for whatever the work center is, or you can create your own. You can create add-ons. So the more, not just associating a price with an item, but associating an amount of labor time or a quantity. For example, the paint, if you chose a larger size frame, maybe it would apply more paint to the frame. Okay, that's a simple option that we have. Let's go into another one here. I'm going to look at a wood door. So we talked a little bit about doors being configurable. And this is a slightly different experience. So we'll have a look at that. I'll click the configure button here. It launches our configuration session. Very similar to what you saw on the bike. You pick a wood species. Within that wood species, you have different types of stains that are available. So maybe you want a natural wood door. Okay. The difference is this is using our 2D drawings. Okay. So we've got a bunch of defaults set for sizes. So in this case, we've actually gone in and said that usually customers, or we would prefer if customers order these standard dimensions. So it opens up a dimension sort of view here, and we've got a width of 30 and a height of 80. So you can see it's 80 inches high, 30 inches wide. Now we can change this. So we can go in, and instead of having it 30 inches wide, you can get like kind of a wider door and say it's 33 inches, and then it changes things dynamically. So that's all set up in the configuration rules to be able to do that, right? Maybe we want a shorter door in this case. So we go through, we can pick like a shorter door, right? And that's an option too. Like we've got like a drop boxes for these, but we could also do it. So that you have, a type in value. So for example, this is 8 inches, this lock rail in the middle, this is going to be 8 inches wide. Maybe I want to change it so that this lock rail sits instead of 41 inches to the center. Maybe it's a 46, so we're going to put it a little bit higher. So instead of 41 here, we put it at 46. And then we're going to make this, instead of 8 inches wide, we'll make it 12 inches. So that's a type in value there. Okay. And if we wanted to see it with a glass panel in the top, then we'll just add the glass panel in there. So that's going to update the bill of materials to use the glass panel. It's not pre-hung, but let's use hinges in there. So we'll add hinges, and it's going in and saying, how many hinges do you want? You want 3 of them. They're going to be spaced out. So it's created the calculation to space them out automatically based on the dimensions that we've selected. We're going to go with a 4 hinge model because it's a little taller than usual. Now it's got the 4 hinges spaced in there properly. Tip available, click finish, and now we've got our configuration. Okay, so it's creating the job for the wood door. And I believe this particular model will come back with, So the description of this wood door didn't change the part number, but it changed the description. So now we're looking at a width of 33.75 and a height of 90 based on the options that I've selected. Okay, so that's one of the entry points. That's on the customer order line. Estimates look exactly the same. One thing I want to touch on is what if a customer changes their mind? So we go in, so the customer ordered that door a specific way, 33 by 75, but now they change their mind, they want to change the order. So we go in, we click configure, we say, what was that size you wanted? Because you measured wrong, right? So we're going to go in, we're going to look at the dimensions. They say, you know what, instead of being 33.75, we actually needed 42 inches. Okay, so that 42 inches. Now we've got a 42-inch wide door. Finish it. Customer changed their mind. So that would be a very difficult process if you didn't have Infor CPQ. All of the dimensions adjusted, the number of hinges, all of that was dependent. And by changing the width, we're changing the amount of material. We're changing all of the I think it's styles. Oh, it's rails. It's rails that are measured this way. So by changing the width, we're changing the width of all those different rails that go in. So this is an example where you really would want to get a configurator, right? When you have configurable products that are like that. Okay. Estimates work the same way. If I look at the job here, let's just have a quick look here. So there's a wood door. I'll look at the source. So now this is going to open up the job. The thing that I wanted to point out is that there is also a configure button. Right now, it's not letting me configure because it's saying configure status. I've just got it set so that it won't work this way. But you can configure from the job as well. So if you're making a product, you're in a make to order situation, and you just really create a job and it's not coupled to, not make to order. If you have like more of a make to stock type situation, you want to manufacture some configured products, create the configuration in the configurator, okay, and then you create the job for it, but it's not linked to a customer order. So you can go in and create the job and then configure the job and release the job. Okay, so that's not linked to a customer order. The other scenario we have is our Sightline portal. So this is actually the dealer portal. So it's what we call the reseller portal. So I've got an active for customer here. So I can place orders as a dealer logging in. I can place orders on behalf of different customers that I have. Okay, so I can create these. Very simple to set up. So basically you change your branding. and everything's ready to go over the box, right? So these images, you just swap out the images for your own images, and we're good to go. Okay. What we'll do is we'll go in here and we'll design, say, that transformer. Okay, so I'm shopping for different activities over, or different things over here. It allows me to print out or check on order statuses, interfaces with consigned inventory, reprint invoices, check on my commissions, process RMAs, interact back and forth to the back end. It stores those with CRM interactions. So a lot of different integration that's built in. Okay, but I want to shop by category. I'm going to go into lighting and electrical. This, I have a couple of configured products here, so we'll look at those. The way this works, most of these items are not configurable. So if I wanted to add like 3 of these small transformers, I've got a little icon here to put in my shopping cart. I click on the icon, and what it does is it just adds it in. So now I've got one item in my shopping cart up at the top. These 2 items down here are configurable. Okay. So instead of having a little arrow pointing into my shopping cart, what I've got is I've got a shopping cart with a gear on it. So when I go to add one configurable transformer into my shopping cart, it doesn't place it directly into my shopping cart. It asks me to configure it first. Okay. This has a whole bunch of different numeric values for the phase and kilovolts, windings. It's asking me to, to figure it this way, right? But one of the key things, now it takes me to the parts and accessories, and this is the part that you saw. Okay, but remember, I'm still configuring this on the web. Okay, so there's my pole, there's my pad mount. I choose the guard, but it's also building a visual configuration in here. So if I click on the visual configuration tab, it's going to load a 3D model. So we showed you the 2D design. This is a 3D model that lets me look at it in different views, right? I can add a custom nameplate. So there's another design decision where I can add a custom nameplate saying ESS transformer. So this is just a free-form text. So this is probably going to be added to a metal plate that goes in there. And we can do whatever we want with this. This could be a note that's added to the materials, or it could be, going to a specific item. I can explode this view. So now I'm looking at this transformer. I'm looking at the guts of the transformer. I can zoom in. I can see it. This has got like the coils and the windings over there. So if I wanted to display this without the cover, I can take the cover off. So that's built into the 3D model. So that I'm taking the cover off. And I could also not show the coils. And that way I'm just looking at this section of it and I can see how it's built out. So this might be handy if you're building something like, boats or something where you really would like to see like a 3D view of the item. And it's pricing it all out as I go. I click finish. And now it's returned to the shopping cart. So as a dealer, I placed an order on behalf of my customer. And now in my shopping cart, I've got 2 items, one of them configurable, one of them not. Okay, I just wanted to quickly go through one other thing here. So this was the configuration sessions. So let's just talk about implementation. Okay. So implementation steps, really this is about model planning, okay? So when we plan our model, there's a number of steps that we take. So first of all, what you want to do, our configurator is different than if you're familiar with other configuration systems. Some of them make you start out with an impossible bill of materials with absolutely every option in it. And then as the user selects options, it subtracts. So it's sort of a subtractive process and takes out the options that don't fit. Okay, we start with a blank canvas. So you would go through and say, first question, second question, third question. And then when you're done asking your questions, okay, then it creates the manufacturing rules, the bill of materials, all of that in the background. So the first thing is you want to determine the number of configured items that you'd like to end up with. Okay, so if you wanted to end up with, in the example of, say, the transformer, right? The options that you choose, like it's a low voltage one, then that's going to change the part number to a low voltage part number. And that makes it a little bit easier for you to do your reporting. So you're looking at your low voltage versus high voltage transformers. Okay. So you want to decide on how many configured items you want to end up with. First step. And secondly, you want to create a survey. So what I say by a survey is splitting that into two sections, your screen rules, your manufacturing rules. After the customer completes the survey, then you should be able to come up with a price for it. Okay, so you need to design your screen rules so that you price it out carefully. And then your shop should also be able to build it. So you want to make sure you ask enough questions, right, in your survey to be able to give specific instructions to your shop. And thirdly, you want to come with the different visualization techniques that are available, the 2D, the 3D, but then also even the visualizations on the options. Like, do you want it to be a checkbox? Do you want it to be a drop down? Do you want it to be a type in? Do you want it to show pictures, mini images of the product's options, right? And then you build the model. Okay, so basically I'm saying plan up front and then build, because it's very tempting, because it's easy to use drag and drop interface. It's very tempting to just go in, get started, and start doing this. Okay, but you want to make sure you start out with a good plan first. All right. Reza asked one question. Do you guys have any other questions?
That's a very detailed presentation, Steve. Thank you. And let's see if we have any questions. I drop a comment to the Q&A section. You can leave your questions there, or you can use chat section. That's an option too. So we can wait 1 minute, and then so we can close out. Let's see if we have any questions.
Everyone's still there.
Yeah.
Questions?
You can use Q&A or chat. Okay, I think we don't have any questions, Steve. So, but of course, we have covered everything for today's session. And I want to extend a big thank you to you, Steve. It was a fantastic and a very detailed presentation. It was really good. If any of you have any questions that come to mind after the session, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We would be more than happy to answer them via email or connect one-on-one or from LinkedIn as well. You will also receive a follow-up email with the recording of today's webinar, and along with any additional resources we discussed. So keep an eye on your inbox, and just in case, your spam box as well. And also, before we wrap up, I also want to mention our upcoming webinar is on October 16, and we will discuss the Prophecy IoT product with Godland, and we would love to see you there if you are interested. And thank you all for joining us today and for your participation, and we hope you found this session valuable, and we look forward to seeing you at for future events. So have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.